I just finished my complete rewatch of everything Stranger Things, all four seasons this past weekend by watching the last five episodes of season four. So let's talk about everything from the great, the good, and the not so good as we get into season five this week. Before I get into the specifics of season four, I really want to talk about how I think this season stacks up with the rest. Going into this rewatch, I had the seasons ranked from top to bottom 1, 3, 4, 2, and I think my ranking is staying that way. There have been some points where I thought that I could switch 4 and 2, but the end all be all of these seasons is that season four is just bigger, grander, has the bigger moments. And season two is just the most forgettable season out of all four seasons, in my opinion. The way that something really sticks with me is something that could really make a show like stand out a little bit more for me, and that is the way that season four is for me. And that's why I almost thought it was going to be better than season three, even, but I'm still going to stick with the 1, 3, 4, 2. But in terms of like ranking season four out of 10, I still give it the same score I gave it season two. I give it an 8 out of 10. And it gets those two notches down for it because there were two storylines that I really just thought were actually kind of dumb. But there's just so much other incredible stuff that makes up for it. But the two things I thought were actually kind of like dumb storylines, even though they had good payoffs, was Yuri, Murray, and Joyce, that whole dumb storyline in Russia, and then the Mike, Will, Jonathan, Argyle storyline. Like any storyline with Joyce just doesn't feel the same or have the same amount of heart if Will is not involved and it's like a central point of what is motivating her. Like it literally just went from her just looking at Christmas lights in her house trying to talk with her boy in the upside down to literally doing reconnaissance missions and like holding a gun to a dude's head in Russia. Like how did we get here? I can say though that this storyline with Joyce and Murray does have an incredible payoff with Joyce and Hopper's reunion, with 11 and Hopper's reunion at the end of the season. So those moments alone almost warrant this crappy storyline just for it to have that kind of a payoff. But then there's also the Jonathan, Will, and Mike storyline with Argyle. Argyle, again, I mentioned in my first video talking about season four, he's just too annoying and like not funny at all. His whole purpose is the fact that he has a car. That's basically all he has, and then he gets them into the surfer dude's pizza place or whatever so they can use that so Eleven can get into her like mental state there. Other than that, I didn't think he served really many purposes at all, and his point of being in the show was kind of pointless. And kind of going back to Hopper for a second, as I was watching like the points getting into like that fight with the Demogorgon, I was realizing that they basically just made David Harbour like a Jason Statham type character. He went from being like a great detective as a like small town sheriff in a small town into being just this action hero basically. It's just another thing where like this whole thing where they go into Russia and making the show too like big going into Russia makes things too big for this thing that was such like a small contained story, and that's one of the things that just kind of bugs me about season 4 and season 3. But even though there are those storylines, there is still so much good, and I think that this season has potentially the best storyline in the entire show because it has the storyline with Max, Lucas, Dustin, Steve, Nancy, Robin, Erica, all like that big ensemble group with them trying to like put the pieces together the upside down and even helping Eddie being a part of that too. Like that's one of the best storylines in the entire series, and it was all contained in Hawkins and the Upside Down. Like we get to see Steve's dynamic with Dustin, which is still kind of like an old married couple bickering all the time, which I think is so funny, such a great creative choice. We get to see Dustin and Eddie. We get to see Nancy and Steve. We get to see Nancy and Robin. We get to see Steve and Robin. So many great dynamics, and then even Max and Lucas's relationship. It's so many great dynamics in a big group of people, and it's so perfect, and they're all just working together for this common cause. And then there's that moment at the end of episode 6 where Steve is being attacked by the Demobats. And it's frankly bizarre that Steve survived season 4. With the way he was talking to Nancy about how he had like his whole life planned out with her being a part of it and like basically putting everything on the table, and then him getting attacked by the bats and then them basically being choked out for like 40 minutes throughout all this stuff going on in the finale. It's insane that Steve survived. I think they probably should have unalived Steve in this season. Like with the way they were talking, I don't really know what else he has to do in this season 5. I know he's most likely going to have some kind of sacrificial moment for Dustin or for Nancy, but I feel like it would have been like meant a little bit more if it was this season. And this might be a hot take. I think they should have unalived Steve instead of Eddie. I think it would have been so fascinating if we had a literal like court case storyline in season 5 of trying to prove Eddie's innocence. But that doesn't mean that I'm not anticipating Steve dying in season 5. And I'm also frankly terrified because when I was rewatching that scene with him in the demo bats, I was like, watching him be unalive on screen is going to be so tough. Anyone who dies in the season is going to be so hard to watch. And another thing about season 4 is that like it has so much stuff going on, and one of the best episodes is episode 7 because it has the Steven all those guys in the upside down. He has the 11-1 face-off moment. It has Hopper and Russia going up against the Demogorgon, which no matter how much I don't like the Russia storyline, the stuff with Hopper facing off against the Demogorgons was all pretty awesome. And like the snowy environment too was just so awesome. And then again, that episode has this conversation with Eddie and Steve where Eddie is talking to Steve about how much Dustin adores him. And then Steve just ends up surviving. They're just putting all the pieces together where it would have been perfect for Steve to have a heroic sacrifice. And then he ends up living. Like, it would have been great if there was a moment at the end. I'm jumping ahead a little bit to the finale where it's Robin, Nancy, and Steve going up against Vecna. And then Nancy has the shotgun. Robin and Steve have the Molotov cocktails. And there could have been a moment where the shotgun wasn't working and Vecna was going for Nancy. Steve could have jumped in the way, pushed him off that ledge while he's on fire, and that could have been a heroic sacrifice to save Nancy in that moment. I am jumping around a lot because there's so much more I want to talk about, but let's just keep going, try to keep up. And another thing that was really awesome, again with the best storyline in the season, was when they figured out they can communicate through lights as Robin, Nancy, Eddie, and Steve are in the Upside Down. And then they get the light bright out. That is just genius, and it's showing why Dustin is my favorite character in this season. He is just the glue that holds everyone together, and he is the brains that is making everything move the way it should be. But then obviously that episode also has the incredible reveal of Vecna being 11, the incredible like transition showing Vecna and then having those 001 tattoo on him. My gosh, what an incredible twist. And again, it's one of those things that's like a 13 out of 10 that's compensating for like the 2 out of 10 and the 4 out of 10s. I also just really want to point out that I think that the second most badass character in the entire series out of like the main cast ensemble is Nancy, because I just love that they took this like small town like popular girl and then transformed her into being this like gun-toting badass, and she is just so awesome. Every single time there's like a main battle, big build up, she's always the one who is just like has like the best one-liners and is just ready to do whatever it takes. I haven't talked much about 11 yet. 11 does have so many incredible moments. She has a moment with like facing off with Vecna, and she has the moment like against like when she gets her powers back, shooting all those people off of her with like the sparks in the background, and she has the helicopter scene, pulling down that helicopter. 11 is probably my second favorite character of the season, either second or third, because she is just insane badass, and her storyline of getting her powers back and finding out the source of Vecna and all of that was a very good storyline, probably my second favorite of the season. Now, another thing that kind of makes me upset about the season 4, specifically the finale, is that usually in the past seasons, that there's always the moment where everyone comes together to have this final battle with whatever the big bad is. And in season 4, they essentially still do. They still have the same point that they're all trying to do. They're all trying to help, but they're all still so separate. Hopper and Joyce are in freaking Russia, and then there's the big storyline that's doing everything, and then there's 11 and Mike who have their old thing when they're in freaking California, where again they're all technically still coming together in a way, but not as a big unified front, all in one place, trying to put a plan together. And that made me just a little bit upset, even though they also had the same point in mind. And then we get through all the craziness, and now we're kind of at the end where everyone reunites after all the craziness. And this show has some of like the most like emotional hugs that I've ever seen in any kind of show. It's just showing how much everyone just truly loves each other, and you can just see it's like the actors are hugging. It's not even the characters, like the actors are hugging each other because they just have so much love for everyone who's a part of the show. And now another thought came to my head as I was watching this, and I was like, is it possible for a show to just have too many characters? It's kind of getting to a point where we are now going to 5 seasons, and we still have like 12 characters that were all from the first season, and none of them have been killed off throughout that time. That is kind of how the show just got too big. They just kept too many characters, and they're going to need to cut down a lot of them this season. But it sucks that this is the last season. This is when they're finally going to do that. Like, there should have been some moments where like Hopper stayed dead or Steve died or something like that. There's just too many characters now. And that's why season 4 was just so big. They had to fit in so many storylines. But other than that, like, season 4 is an absolute banger. Even though it's my third favorite out of the 4 seasons, it's still so incredible. There's not a bad season of Stranger Things. I'm so excited for season 5. I got some more videos incoming, but what are you excited to see in Stranger Things 5?